My parents paid off my twin sister's student loans the week after we both finished medical school. They didn't tell me they told her. And she told Instagram. The photo showed her holding a gold envelope with debt-free, written in my mother's handwriting. Their arms wrapped around her like she'd cured cancer. I saw it between consults. Still in my scrubs. With a half-eaten protein bar in my hand. In the caption, Lily thanked the two people who believed in me more than I believed in myself. I closed my phone before I could finish the sentence. Because I knew what it meant. They believed in her. Not us. For 3 nights. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's bracelet glinting in the photo. The one she said she'd sell someday to help us both. I remembered the year she promised we were equals. What we do for one, we do for the other. That was before the distinctions. Before they decided Lily's smile looked better in family newsletters than mine. I'm not bitter by nature. I became a doctor because I wanted to fix what people ignore until it kills them. But some things you can't fix. You can only document. I started collecting the evidence like I was preparing a case, a bank memo with her name. A calendar screenshot of their dinner reservations the night before the surprise. And a voicemail from my father saying, "Sweetheart, you'll understand when you have kids." My mentor. Dr. Elena Park. Noticed before I said anything. "You've been quiet," she said after rounds. Her voice the kind that made even senior residents stand straighter. I told her the truth. Or part of it that my family had a celebration coming up. I didn't want to attend. She tilted her head. Considering, "Show up anyway," she said. Sometimes the best way to end a story is to walk through its ending. I didn't understand then that she already had a plan of her own. The gala invitation arrived in my inbox 2 days later, celebrating Lily Hale debt-free and destined for greatness. I stared at the subject line for a full minute before opening it. The email was from my mother. CC'd to 40 relatives and half her church choir. I wasn't mentioned. Except as also attending. I told myself I'd skip it. Then Dr. Park called me into her office. Her desk was immaculate, only a mug of green tea and a folder marked confidential. She pushed it toward me. "Your fellowship application came through," she said. He blinked. "The Sloan Translational Oncology Fellowship." She nodded. "Full placement. MD Anderson. Loan forgiveness attached." My throat tightened. "They picked me. You earned it. Nora, you'll make us proud." Her tone softened. But then she added, "There's an announcement at the alumni gala this weekend. I want you there." I laughed. A shaky, disbelieving sound. "You mean that gala?" "I mean exactly that one," she said. "Let's make sure the right people hear the right story." That's how I found myself standing under a chandelier that looked like 1,000 prescription lenses. Pretending my heels didn't hurt. Pretending I didn't know what the slideshow behind the podium would show. The first slide was a baby photo of Lily her in a white cap. My mother's caption looping in cursive. "Our miracle girl." They'd cropped me out. The room glittered with alumni and donors. My parents floated from table to table. Glowing like politicians. My father caught my eye once and smiled a guilty smile. The kind that asks forgiveness without offering apology. Lily stood near the podium in a silver dress. Looking as uncomfortable as I felt, she mouthed, "I'm sorry," when our eyes met. And I believed her. For all her privilege. She'd never been cruel, just chosen. The speeches began. My mother thanked everyone who made Lily's dreams possible. My father followed, quoting something about hard work and God's favor. I tuned them out, studying the reflections in the wine glasses, thinking how every light can distort if you stare too long. Then Dr. Park walked up. The microphone barely reached her shoulder. But the room fell silent anyway. She began by congratulating Lily. Then turned. "I'd also like to acknowledge someone who's made this department proud in ways that extend beyond GPA or publications," she said. My parents froze. "Dr. Nora Hale has been awarded the Sloan Translational Oncology Fellowship at MD Anderson, fully funded." with loan forgiveness, for her groundbreaking work on biomarker modeling. The applause started hesitant, then grew. Cameras clicked. Lily clapped first, and that broke the tension. My mother's hand hovered in midair, unsure whether to touch me or hide. My father's face was stone. I smiled, not the rehearsed kind, but the kind that comes from oxygen finally reaching your lungs. "Doctor." Park leaned in. "You see," she murmured. "Sometimes justice just needs a microphone." Afterward, reporters approached for quotes. My mother recovered fast. She always did. "We're so proud of both our girls," she told one camera, her voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. My father nodded beside her. The image of supportive parenthood. I didn't correct them. You don't argue with a performance when the audience already knows the truth. Later, Lily found me by the coat rack. Her eyes were glassy. "You deserved that," she said quietly. "I told them what they did wasn't fair." I studied her face, searching for resentment. Found only relief. "I know," I said. "You always did." The night ended with polite goodbyes and flashes of cameras that felt like lightning you could predict. On the ride home, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother dinner Sunday. "Let's talk, just us three." I didn't answer. At my apartment, I poured a glass of water and watched the city lights smear across the window. Somewhere below, people were still celebrating someone else's success. I realized I wasn't angry anymore, just done being the footnote in my own story. I opened my laptop and typed my resignation email to the hospital. It felt like shedding a skin. Then I opened another window, one-way ticket to Houston. The confirmation number popped up like a code for freedom. For the first time in years, the air felt light enough to breathe. Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt like walking into a museum built for someone else. Every photo on the wall had Lily in it smiling, framed in light, surrounded by captions that told only half the truth. Harvard white coat ceremony. First mission trip. Lily and proud parents. My images were there too, but smaller, usually beside hers, as if I were an accessory to her life. When I arrived, the kitchen smelled like lemon polish and roast chicken. My mother hugged me tightly, too tightly, like she wanted to reset something by force. "You look tired," she said. "Traveling already. I heard you're moving to Texas." "Houston," I corrected. My father poured wine. "That announcement at the gala was impressive," he said. His tone hovered between compliment and accusation. "You could have told us." I sat down, folded my napkin. "Like how you could have told me about the loan gift." The table went quiet except for the clock ticking. My mother sighed. "We didn't mean to hurt you. It was just your sister had more debt. And you're more independent." Independent. The word scraped against me. That's what they called neglect when they wanted credit for it. I was independent because I had to be, I said. My father's jaw tightened. "We did what we could. Lily's been struggling emotionally. And you thought she needed saving." I finished, and I didn't. No one spoke for a full minute. Outside, a lawnmower buzzed faintly from a neighbor's yard. My mother reached across the table, her hand trembling. "We were proud of you too, Nora. We just didn't know how to show it." I wanted to believe her, but something in me had already shifted. I'd spent too long trying to earn the kind of pride that only responds to applause. "Mom," I said quietly, "love isn't something you announce after the cameras flash. It's what you do when no one's looking." Her eyes filled, and I looked away before I could soften. That night I packed my apartment slowly, labeling boxes like patient charts, books, keep, old journals, review later, scrups, donate. Every item I touched carried a memory. And every memory had two sides, one where I reached for approval, and another where I learned to survive without it. Leo, an old classmate, Stopped by to help with the boxes. You really leaving? He asked. Yes, I said. Finally doing something that's mine. He smiled. You're going to do great in Houston. And your family, maybe they'll come around. Maybe, I said. But I knew better. Some reconciliations only happen in imagination. After he left, I sat on the floor and opened a folder labeled Fellowship Materials. Inside was the letterhead I had stared at 100 times. Sloan Translational Oncology Fellowship. Full appointment. My name looked heavier in print than it ever did online. I traced it with my thumb, thinking of Dr. Park's words. Sometimes justice just needs a microphone. I wrote her an email short. Direct. Subject: Thank you for believing in me. Dr. Park. You changed the trajectory of my life. I hope I can make the program worthy of your trust. Nora. I hit send before I could overthink it. 2 days later. Dr. Park called. Packing yet, she asked. Halfway, I said, still trying to fit my life into cardboard. Good. Don't forget to take your dignity. It's light but essential. I laughed. The first real laugh in weeks. She paused before hanging up. Nora, one more thing. Your presentation at the Fellowship Symposium, open with what you lived through. People trust science, but they remember stories. That line stayed with me. People remember stories. On my last night in Boston, Lily stopped by. She was wearing her old hoodie from college. The one with my initials on the tag, because she used to borrow everything. I wanted to see you before you go, she said. Mom's been crying all week. She'll be fine, I said. I know, Lily admitted. But she's scared. They both are. They don't know how to treat you when you don't need them anymore. That surprised me. You sound like Dr. Park. Lily smiled weakly. I follow her on Twitter. She's terrifying in the best way. We sat on the couch, silent for a while. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. Inside was a bracelet, our grandmother's silver one. The one my mother always said she'd give to whoever made the family proud. I think she'd want you to have it, Lily said. I stared at it. Are you sure? She nodded. You've been the strong one all along. I just had the spotlight. The words lodged somewhere between my ribs and my throat. I hugged her. For once, there was no competition in the space between us. When she left, I looked at the bracelet glinting under my lamp and thought how strange it was that something so small could weigh more than forgiveness. The next morning, I boarded my flight to Houston. As the plane rose over the clouds, Boston shrank beneath me, tiny grids, thin rivers, memories sealed inside glass. I opened my notebook and wrote the first line of my new research proposal. The human body doesn't seek revenge, it seeks balance. Outside, the sun spilled across the wing like an answer I'd been waiting for. Houston greeted me with a kind of heat that made you confess things. The air felt heavier, the sky lower, but everything smelled faintly of salt and promise. My new apartment overlooked the medical district, a line of glass towers reflecting sunrise like clean slates. The first week passed in a blur of onboarding, badges, and orientations. The Sloan Fellowship cohort was smaller than I expected, 5 doctors. All brilliant. All exhausted. We met in a room lined with microscopes and coffee cups. Dr. Park introduced me as the quiet hurricane from Boston. The others laughed. I smiled because it was easier than explaining how right she was. At night, I unpacked slowly. I placed my grandmother's bracelet on the desk, next to a small frame with Lily and me at our white coat ceremony. I wasn't sure why I'd brought it. It felt like carrying a bruise you didn't want to fade. One evening, after a long day of tumor board meetings, I received a message from my mother. How's Texas, Dad? Says hello. Then a photo arrived. Lily at a volunteer clinic. Her scrubs wrinkled, her eyes tired. My mother's caption, "You two really are twins." I typed several responses, deleted them all. and settled on doing fine. Hope you're both well. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something close to silence that didn't hurt. The following Monday. Doctor, Park pulled me aside. They want you to present your biomarker model at the annual oncology symposium. She said, it's short notice, but it's your work they need to hear it. I felt a pulse of fear under my ribs. I'm not sure I'm ready. She tilted her head. Do it scared. The truth doesn't need comfort. It needs clarity. I spent nights rehearsing. My apartment filled with the glow of slides and the hum of the air conditioner. Each graph felt like a confession hours of coding. Sleeplessness. Isolation distilled into a line of data. I thought of Lily's celebration party. My parents' silence. And Dr. Park's microphone metaphor. This was my version of it. The day of the symposium. The conference hall was freezing. Rows of white coats shimmered under fluorescent lights. I took the stage. Palms damp. Heart steady. My name is Dr. Nora Hale. I began. I study what our cells remember when we stop paying attention. I spoke for 15 minutes clear. Measured. Alive. I explained the predictive model. The patient outcomes. The software pipeline that had started as a side project after midnight shifts. When I finished, the applause felt unreal. Dr. Park was standing in the back. Arms crossed. Eyes shining. Afterward, a reporter approached me. Dr. Hale, your talk was inspiring. Can we quote you? Sure, I said. Just spell my name right. That night, I found myself walking through the park behind the hospital. The cicadas were loud. The stars diffused through humidity. I sat on a bench and finally allowed myself to breathe. I thought about my parents, about how love can be a wound that teaches you precision. I thought about Lily, maybe seeing the news, maybe smiling, and I thought about all the years I mistook invisibility for humility. 2 months later, a letter arrived at my office. The return address, my parents' house. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a short note written in my father's tidy script. Nora, we watched your talk online. We're proud of you. We should have said that sooner. Love. Dad and Mom. I stared at the handwriting until the words blurred. It wasn't an apology. Not really, but it was acknowledgement. And that was a start. That weekend, I called Lily. She answered on the first ring. I saw your talk, she said. You were incredible. I played it for Mom, she cried. Of course she did, I said lightly, but my voice wavered. Are you coming home for Thanksgiving? I don't know. Maybe next year. She laughed softly. That's progress. When the call ended, I felt a strange peace. Family didn't have to be repaired overnight. Sometimes it just had to stop breaking. Late one night, I walked back into the lab alone. The machines hummed like distant waves. I placed the silver bracelet around a microscope's base, a quiet promise to keep moving forward. The scent of ethanol and faint citrus filled the air, and for a moment, it smelled like closure. 3 months later, Houston no longer felt like exile. It felt like arrival. The city had folded me into its rhythm. Morning runs past the bayou. Cafeteria, coffee that tasted like determination. And evening walks home under skies that never decided whether to be gold or gray. At work, the fellowship became more than a line on my resume. The research I'd built from exhaustion and doubt was starting to move from concept to trial phase. My data was cited by a senior investigator from Germany. An email from the journal editor said promising trajectory. Every sentence was a small resurrection. But with success came silence. My parents called less often. Lily texted updates. Short and careful. Mom's garden is blooming again. Dad's back at the golf course. I replied with emojis and small talk. It wasn't distance out of anger anymore. It was distance by design. Some relationships heal better when you stop reopening the wound. One Friday evening, I stayed late at the lab. Doctor Park appeared at the doorway, holding 2 cups of tea. "You've been here since 6, she said. 6 a.m. I admitted. She handed me the tea and sat beside me. I saw the preprint. Impressive work. "Nora." "Thank you," I said. "I keep thinking it'll stop feeling unreal." "It won't," she said. "But that's good. It means you still care." She looked at me for a long moment. "Have you thought about reaching out to them?" I didn't have to ask who them was. I'm not sure what I'd say. "Sometimes," she said softly. "The right words are just, 'I'm still here.'" "Oh." She left me with that thought, and the lab light hummed quietly around us. A week later, I attended a departmental banquet, nothing like the one back in Boston. This one was smaller, less polished, more real. When my name was called for outstanding fellow contribution, applause broke out. I gave a brief speech about gratitude, resilience, and how some debts aren't measured in money. Afterward, a man approached me, a gray-haired oncologist I'd met once during rotations. "Your story," he said. "The way you spoke of justice without bitterness, it reminded me of my daughter." I thanked him, and for the first time, the word justice didn't taste like revenge. That night, I walked home barefoot, carrying my heels in one hand. The air was thick with magnolia and distant thunder. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who watched her twins' celebration online, heart cracking under the glow of other people's applause. I wanted to tell her, "You were never invisible. You were just growing in the dark." A few days later, an envelope arrived, no return address. Inside was a photo, my parents standing in front of my childhood house, holding a sign that said, "Home always open." Underneath was a line in my mother's handwriting, "We're learning." For the first time in years, I didn't cry from anger. I just sat there and let the quiet fill the room. I placed the photo beside the bracelet, both symbols of something imperfect but still alive. On the anniversary of my fellowship acceptance, I returned to Boston not for reconciliation, but for closure. Lily met me at the airport. She looked different, calmer, older in the way grief matures you. "Mom's been waiting," she said, as we drove through familiar streets. At the house, my parents stood on the porch. My father looked smaller. My mother's eyes were wet but steady. "We wanted to see you," she said. "I wanted to thank you," I replied, "for teaching me what love shouldn't look like and what I still choose it to be." No one spoke for a while. Then she reached forward and touched my arm. "We're proud of you, Nora." For once, it didn't sound like a performance. That night, after dinner, I walked alone to the small park behind our old school. Fireflies blinked over the pond, the same way they did when Lily and I used to sneak out after curfew. I sat on the old bench and took out my phone. I opened the draft of a YouTube video description I'd been writing for weeks, a personal project inspired by Dr. Simon Say's Park's advice about stories. The title read, "When Justice Finally Found Me." I recorded a soft voiceover under the stars. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about recognition, how sometimes the people who should have seen you last finally see you first. It's about learning that justice doesn't erase pain, it transforms it. And sometimes the loudest apology is silence that lets you move on. I paused, then added quietly, "If you've ever been invisible in your own family, this story is for you." When I finished, I whispered the ending I'd always wanted to hear. "I'm still here." The screen faded to black. I uploaded the video the next morning. Within hours, the comments flooded in strangers telling their own versions of my story, their own quiet revolutions. For the first time, I didn't feel alone in my truth. And when the sunlight hit the silver bracelet on my desk, it glimmered, not like a chain but like a key. Sometimes justice doesn't punish, it liberates. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more real-life inspired stories about resilience. family, and redemption. Your story matters. Don't let anyone tell it for you.